Hey everybody! Well, I got started on a new project today and I'm out here in the pump house and I'm disassembling the water pump and tank because I'm going to put in some other pieces. We're Douglas and Esperanza, and we decided to leave our lives in the US and move to magical Loreto, Mexico, where we built our boutique resort Pufferfish Villas from the ground up and work running it and saving to expand in the future. Please come with us to follow our journey and live before you die. I believe this tank may be waterlogged, which means there's a bladder in there that you fill it with air that helps to keep the pump from cycling very quickly because you have extra volume of water being held in the tank. Well, this tank has been losing pressure and then it seems like it's waterlogged. I didn't have any way to tell because I didn't have any way to drain the water out of this without draining the water out of the whole water system. So I decided to go get all the pieces here that I need to put a drain and all that onto this tank. And as I was thinking, this tank is waterlogged. And you can hear this tank should be empty of water. And it has quite a bit of water in there. So this is definitely a bladder that is blown, and we could probably pull that bottom off and get to that bladder. Now, so the question is, do I try to order a new bladder for this tank or do I get a bigger tank and use that? I have to go see what I can find and if I can get a bladder for this small tank here. I could get a bladder for this. It's going to take me several weeks. I looked it up and the bladder is about and the bladder is about $200. Also, this tank is discontinued. They no longer make it. That means they probably will not make the bladders forever. And in the long run, I'm probably going to get to the point that I cannot get a bladder for this tank anymore, in which case then I won't be able to replace it again. The other option, I can get a brand new 80-gallon tank here, and that tank can be here in 2 days. All right, I've decided I am ordering a new tank so we can have a more standardized system. Plus, this thing being discontinued and everything, I just rather get a new tank in here. And the tank we're buying is a brand called Evans, which is actually a Mexico brand, and it's manufactured in Mexico. So it's easy to get parts for it, and I can get them here quick if I need to do any replacements or anything. So, but it's still not going to be here for several days. So I need to at least hook this tank back up so we have some amount of water storage here to help buffer the system. Because if you have no water storage at all and you're trying to pump with a big pump like this is a big 1 horsepower pump. If you have no water storage and you're trying to repressurize with that, what happens is all you have is the water that's in your pipes, and you don't have that many, that much volume of water in all those pipes. And what it can do is get into a place where the pump is short cycling because it will try to pressurize, and as soon as it turns on, it creates this pressure wave, and the pressure wave will trip the pressure sensor in the pressure switch. The pressure switch goes off. Then that pressure wave goes back down and it sees it has low pressure again. So it turns it back on and it ends up in this cycle where it's called short cycling, and the pump will burn up because the pump will just sit there and go bam, 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 turning on and off really quickly. And it's a situation you don't want to get into. So even if the pressure tank isn't working, it will give us some volume, which will help to make sure that the pump doesn't short cycle. So we're gonna hook it back up, and then when we get the new pressure tank, we will swap it out. All right, it's been a long, hot day, but I finally have this all done up. And so I've got it wired up back up to the breaker. I've got the new digital pump controller, which I had to reinstall because I installed it the wrong way. I have the pump all set up now, and I have a gauge on it, pressure relief valve, a place that I can drain the tank out to check it, and a shutoff for the water going out. Now I just need to prime the pump right here, and then we'll start it up and see what happens. Let's hope for the best. No leaks. Okay, I got the water primed, which is the entire pump body filled up and the tube filled up from the cistern. And now I'm going to turn this on for the very first time and see if anything happens. Put on this cap so I can see if it's building pressure or not, or if there's air in here. And if there's air, only air will come out. But if there's water, then water will come out. So that's good. And I think I got the air out of the top of the system here. See this build pressure, building up to 40. I have actually two pressure gauges. This one's just like pegged out, but I have this other pressure gauge, and it should go up to 60. That's what it will do if it is working correctly. And I think I'm gonna open this a little bit. Okay, and that's not a good sign. It's leaking right here. Not good. All right, let's go run some water and see if this does anything like it's supposed to do. We'll run water and then we'll listen outside. Water is running. There it goes. Goes down. Okay, stop it. Now let's see if it shuts off. That's not good either. That means there's a leak under there. Yeah. So got a leak up here. We got a leak under there. That leak looks fairly big. Yeah, that's not good. It's getting late in the afternoon. I am hot. And this is not looking good because I'm going to take this all apart to try to fix the connection underneath here. Might see how bad it's leaking. I might just leave it if it ain't leaking that bad. This one too. So yesterday I received something that I've been waiting for. DHL showed up with my new water pressure tank, or it's a pressure tank for our water repressurization system. So the tank is a Mexican-made, Mexican brand tank, which is good because it makes it easier to get parts and made it easier to get the tank. I got the tank here in about 4 days, as opposed to 2 weeks or 3 weeks or more, especially since this tank weighs 150 pounds. Transporting it all the way from the US can be expensive. So this is a Mexican brand, Evans, and made in Mexico, so it's gonna be easy to get parts, and it's a better quality tank than the one that's over there, and I'll show you that when I get it unboxed. Now, I also this morning went and got some things to make this system easier to maintain. So let me grab these here and I'll show you what they're for. So over here, the way I have it hooked up now, it is mostly plumbed with PVC pipe. Now, the problem with PVC pipe is that you have to cut it apart and re-glue it every time you need to take something out. Also, there's a big problem with PVC pipe that when you have threaded connections like here, you have to screw those on, hope you get them tight enough so they don't leak, glue all the pipe together, then you have to turn on the water, and if it leaks, you're basically out of luck. You have to cut the pipe back out, tighten it up, and then redo all the pipe. This is a huge pain. So they make unions like this, which I can unscrew this and this will come apart at this connection. I have a union on here, I have a union on there, so that this pump can be easily removed and replaced. But I need to get a similar type thing for the water tanks and all this. So I was going to do unions of PVC pipe, but I think I have a better way, and that is with these 1-inch hoses. Now, these are 1-inch hoses. They're made for doing water pipe like this, and that will give me ability to basically the tank and the what they call the tank T, well T. This will all be one big piece, and I'm going to move this water controller down here to this end of this T, so it'll all be one piece. Then off of that, I'm going to do the flexible hose up to here, and then I'll do a flexible hose over to this connection. So that will make it easy to remove the tank and do maintenance on any parts of the tank, or if it's leaking, I can just disconnect it, screw things tighter, and then reconnect it. Also, having these hoses in between the pump and the rest of the system over here will help with any vibrations, and over time, you know, it can make the PVC leak because of the vibrations on the pipe. So that will all help, and that's the way I'm going to put it together. So this should be, cross your fingers, pretty darn easy. Very nice. All right, all right. So this is a big boy, 100-gallon pressure tank. So the standard size that you're gonna find, I lived on a farm, and the standard size you usually find on a farm when you have a well and a well pump is 80 gallons. Now, they did have an 80-gallon available. This actually comes in 82 gallons, 100 gallons, and 127 gallons. I got the 100-gallon because it literally was like $42 more than the 82 gallons. So I figure for 42 bucks, get a little more, and it will be good. So let's see what the best way. I'd love to save this box. I'm gonna see if I can tip it over and get it out, because a nice big box like this is valuable to me to put stuff in, like other cardboard, and be a little storage device. So I'd rather not cut it open if I don't have to. Let's see if they have English. I kind of doubt it, but some of the trooper stuff is now having English sections in their manuals. No, no English. That's fine. I can read it in Spanish and translate anything I need to, not a problem. Plus, I really don't need a manual anyways, because I know how to hook this up. All right, let's take a look at this tank. All right, this tank had several features that kind of stood out. It's got all brass fittings. So it's got a brass fitting up here at the top where you can where you connect the bladder, top of the bladder. It has a brass air fitting for pressurizing the tank. It's got a steel manifold on the bottom here that you take apart to replace the bladder, and it's got a galvanized steel elbow on the bottom. So none of the plumbing parts on this tank are plastic. It is all steel, brass, and the body of it is a powder coat finish, not paint. So it's got a powder coat finish on it. Looks like a nice welded tank. Now, do this to this tank, compare that to this tank. This tank is painted, not powder coated. This tank has a rubber air fitting like you'd see in a car tire. So that is not as nice. Okay, I was gonna show you the bottom of this tank. So as you can see, this entire piece of bulkhead here that bolts on is all plastic. The threads are plastic. They go into there. So this is nowhere near as hefty and heavy duty as this all metal tank. The biggest reason I hate PVC, look at all this waste. All this is just junk now because all these pieces are too small to use for anything else. So it happens every time where you have PVC, where you have tight connections. You have to make them so tight with a little bit of pipe, and then there's nothing left after you cut them apart to put a little coupler on there. So it's very wasteful way to do piping, but it is inexpensive, and that's the main way they do it down here. So that's pretty much how we have to do it. All right. You see, I put the hoses onto the plastic first. That way I don't have to try to do the rank on this when it's on here. So both those are on and they are drying. So I thought I'd show you a side-by-side comparison of these two tanks here. Here's the old tank, 19 gallons. The new tank, 100 gallons. So this is a huge upgrade. All right, ran into the first issue. It may send me back to the store. I hope not, but let's see. The fitting on the bottom here is 1 1/4. And my well tee that needs to go on here is 1 inch. So obviously I need an adapter. Okay, I ran back to Madeiras, California, our local hardware store. This is just in case. I don't think I'm gonna need it, but I wanted to have it in case. This is the piece I needed right here. So this will go into here. And then this should thread right into that. Perfecto. So I will get all the Teflon tape on this and get it all put together, and then we will get this buttoned up and see if it's going to work and not leak. I have everything connected, and down here we have the water hose now coming in from the pump. That goes into the T here, which has a drain and a pressure relief on it. This is on off for the rest of the system in the house. And then this is the pressure gauge that reads the pressure going out to the house, and then it's connected by a hose which is kinked. But I think that once the water gets through this thing, we will be able to get this straightened back out. So, tanks here, everything's connected. Now I need to pre-charge the tank. So I need to put 38 psi of air into this tank. You usually pre-charge a tank for 2 psi under the lowest pressure of your pump. And the pump is going from 40 to 60, which is the standard that you do a pump. And so it even says here, even in English, 3 months, pre-charge your tank, drained all the water out of it, ensure it's between 1 and 2 psi under the cut-in pressure. So we will do that now, and then we can start filling this thing with water. And let's turn this baby on. Okay, don't see any major leaks. Let's come around to this side. This hose. There we go. Need to get some water in there to get that hose stretched out, so that's looking good now. And it's going to be filling up this tank right now. It has to fill up 100 gallons into this tank. So that is going to take a little bit of time to get 100 gallons in there. Now I'm looking for major leaks. I spilled this water down here, so it's hard to tell, but I don't see anything major on this side. I don't see anything major down here. Nothing here. Nothing here. So far, everything's looking good. No leaks. There's water in there. That all looks good. There we go. All right, I am back out here today because I need to make some adjustments on this water system. So this digital controller that I got is not working correctly. So I'm emptying the tank out right now. I've got to empty the tank out so that I can take this out. I'm going to try to move it, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do here. But basically, I've got to empty all the water out of the tank because I'm going to take this apart and redo it another way. I'm not wasting, whoa, I am wasting the water because look at that craziness. Well, I was going to say I'm watering the plants, but I guess I was watering the plants crazy style. I got kind of a crazy sprinkler going here. This is kind of funny. All right, well, I don't need to water the wood, but this thing is scary because I think if I get too close to it, it's just going to get me. Anyways, I didn't want to waste the water, so I was going to use it to water some of my trees, which always can use some water. And looks like that might be the end of the water. Okay, pressure down to 0, and that is all the water. Okay, so the problem that I was having is that this system was not working properly. The entire purpose of this tank is to reduce the frequency of the pump going on and off, because what burns up the pump and makes it fail is turning on and off, because every time you turn the pump on, it has a big surge to get the motor started because it's got a lot of resistance and it's torque. It has to start the motor from a stop, and the motor is under back pressure from the water. So it takes a huge surge of electricity to get the motor started. And that is when the motor is stressed the most and when the motor gets all of its wear on it. So you want to reduce the number of times the motor cycles on and off. If you did not have this tank at all, every time you turned on the water, the motor cycles on, and then when you turn off the water, it cycles back off, because we are pumping up out of a cistern that we have over around the corner underground, and we have to pump the water out of the cistern, and then this pump repressurizes it for our entire water system here. This pump controller is not working that way. It is coming on every time you turn on the tap, even though this tank was full of water and pressurized. And I believe the problem is that this pump controller is on past the tank. So you have the water coming from the pump here. It comes down into this side, and then it can fill the tank up, and then it goes through here and then out to all of our water supply, all of our taps and everything we have. I believe this has some type of a flow sensor in it that senses the flow of water through it, also with the pressure. And I have that because it's supposed to be a protection mechanism in case the water runs out and there's no flow. It's going to turn the pump off because it sees no flow, and that's a protection for the pump. But the problem is it needs to be on this side of the tank, because when you turn on the faucet, let's say the pressure is almost down. You turn on the faucet and water starts to run through this. So it has flow and it has low pressure. It turns on the pump, powers the pump starts pumping, and then when you turn off the tap, the flow stops through here. Now there still is flow coming from the pump down here that's filling the tank up. But the problem is that this isn't seeing any flow here. So I think that's why it's turning the pump off, because it thinks that the pump is running dry. So I need to get this to the other side of this T so that when it cycles and when you turn off the tap, you still want the pump to keep going until this tank gets full. And so you need this on this side so that it'll see a flow of water going into the tank even when the pump is off, or even when the tap is off, and it will let it keep pumping. I think that's the problem. All right. Woo! It's getting hot. We're only in the beginning of June, second day of June, but it's getting hot here in Loretto. Anyways, I got this all replumbed. So I got the controller here on the pump side. So it comes from the pump here, comes through here, and goes down around there into the tank to fill the tank, and then also out to all the taps. So this thing ran for quite a while because it had to fill up the tank. I think the tank is filled up. You can't really tell because the bladder's in the middle of it, but the tank should be filled up now, and it's showing 60 psi here on this gauge. There still is a discrepancy. This gauge shows 50 psi. I'm not sure which one is right, but it feels like a lot of pressure when you turn it on. I'm going to turn it on here in a minute. We're going to see if this thing cycles every time you turn on the tap, or if it's going to work like it's supposed to and use that water out of the pressure tank instead of just turning on the pump. So here we'll turn it on in here and listen. And that's running a lot of water, good pressure. And looks like we fixed it because the pump is not running. We are just drawing out of that tank. So that tap is running full blast, but the pressure is barely falling. And so now we'll have to do a run and get all that 100 gallons out of the tank and make sure that it cycles correctly once that happens. See, we're still blasting water out. Now, I don't want to waste a bunch of water just to test this. I'm not going to run 100 gallons of water down the drain to test this. So what we'll do is I need to take a shower anyways a little later this afternoon because I am all sweaty. I'm hot. So we'll just use this the rest of the day like normal. And we can hear in the house. So I'll just hear. You can barely hear when it comes on in the house. So we'll just keep track of whether it's going on or not. And as long as it isn't, I would say this problem is solved. I'm glad I figured out what was going wrong. And I was going to show you a regular pressure gauge that you'll see on a well pump. So this is your regular pressure switch you'll see on a well pump. This is the cover. And then this sits here. So this is a totally, of course, mechanical pressure switch here. And basically the water comes up through the bottom and it pushes up on a little kind of, what would you call that? Kind of a plunger. And that causes this switch to switch on and off and to connect the power. But this device only can sense pressure. It cannot sense flow, meaning it can't tell whether water is moving through the system. And that's why this type of switch will work anywhere in the system, because it's only just monitoring the pressure of the system. Whereas that digital switch also watches the flow. So if there's no flow and it's running the pump, it thinks the pump ran out of water. So it turns the pump off so you don't burn the pump up. So I could have switched to this and kept it where it was and it would have worked just fine. But I wanted the digital digital controller on there also because of the flow control to protect the pump if it runs out of water, because I do have float switches in the cistern that are supposed to shut it off when it gets too low, but that actually failed in my cistern down at the Pufferfish Villas. So this is an extra level of protection. So if the water runs out in the cistern and the pump is going, it isn't going to sit there and just burn up with no water in it. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe and never forget to live before you die.